Hello there, you're welcome to Hiscop TV. My name is Collins Nanaya Abebrese. In this video, we are going to look at the colonial agreements between the Francophone countries and France. And this video, I'm doing this video because of what is happening mainly in some of the Francophone countries, such as Niger. Of course, the current one, we've had Burkina Faso, Mali, Chad, and Co. So I'm basically talking about the coups taking place in these, of course, Francophone countries. Now, before the French gave independence to their colonies during the 1960s, they signed a pact known as the Colonial Pact or the Colonial Agreement. And there were certain things that the colonies were supposed to agree upon. So France brought up some terms of agreement that they expected their colonies to agree on before independence could be granted to them. And that is what we are going to look at, the agreements, and analyze it and see whether it was useful for these Francophone countries to subscribe or to to agree to these pact, and therefore they were given independence. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel. So let's begin. Now, these agreements were signed between Francophone countries such as Benin, we had Burkina Faso, we had Guinea-Bissau, we had Ivory Coast, we've had Mali, Niger, because the current one, we had Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, the Central African Republic, Chad, Congo Brazzaville, and Equatorial Guinea, as well as Gabon. Now, these countries signed a pact before they were given independence. So they had an agreement with France before they were granted independence. Let's see what these countries agreed on. Now, the first agreement number one, was that there was something called the colonial debt to be repaid, of course, the benefits of colonization. So that means that newly independent state must reimburse the cost, of infrastructures built by France during the colonial period or during colonization. So that is a debt to be paid for the benefit of colonization. So the French assume that they have established certain infrastructure, example roads, of course railways, hospitals, schools, and so on. And so they expect that if you want your independence, then you should pay for those items. That was the first agreement that, of course, the French brought, which then means that when we grant you independence, you own us right from the start. You are indebted to us. And I'm sure that it is the French that will state the amount of debt that they are supposed to pay for those infrastructures. So all the schools that we have built for you, everything that we have done for you, you are supposed to pay us before we will grant you independence. So when we grant you independence, you already own us a debt. That's the benefit of colonization, what you have achieved. That's quite interesting, right? But the question too also remains, did the French also pay for what they also benefited from the African people? No. And that's crazy. Now, let me give you a classical example of what just happened. In Ivory Coast, Laurent Gbagbo, or the president who was overthrown or something like that, decided not to pay, of course, this tax. So what happened in Ivory Coast was that they were paying rent for their parliament house, and the president, Laurent Gbagbo, decided not to pay. these rent. He built a new parliament house for Cote d'Ivoire and told the French to come and take their parliament house, whatever. They are not willing to pay any rent for that. So those are some examples of the colonial debt, and some of these countries are still paying this. So some of them agreed, even though one or two of these countries did not agree. We will look at those who did not agree and what happened to them. Now let's look at the agreement number 2, the automatic confiscation of national financial reserves. Okay, now that means that all those, of course, Francophone countries must deposit their financial reserves with the Bank of France. Thus, France had been guiding the financial reserves of these countries since 1961. So all your bank reserves, the amount of money that you have stored in case your country is in crisis, as a country, the money that you are storing, you must keep all of them in the French bank. Now, these monies are controlled by the finance minister of France. Now, the most interesting thing is that when you need some of this money, they will give it to you as a loan. So you go for your own money as a loan. Wow, that's so crazy, right? Let's move on to the third one. Now, the third agreement was what is called the right of first refusal on any raw or natural materials or resources are discovered in the country. Now, that means that France has the first right to purchase the natural resources of the land of its former colonies. It is only after France has said, I am not interested, that African countries are allowed to look for other partners. So in case of any discovery of either a natural or, of course, natural resources, what then happens is that you do not bypass France. You needed to alert, of course, the French that we have discovered a new, of course, probably gold or anything. So if you want to buy, then you buy. Should the French say that they are not interested, that is when you have the permission to actually sell these items, to other, of course, countries. So the French must refuse any raw material or natural resources in your country before you can sell it to any other person. Now, what that means is that all these, of course, Francophone countries sell their natural, of course, resources or their raw materials first to the French. And without France, you can never sell it to anybody else unless the French decide that we don't want this particular raw material, we don't need it. Then you are free to to sell them to a different country altogether. If not, you are not free to sell your raw materials or natural resources to any other country except France. Yeah, that's it. And don't forget that the prices of these raw materials are dictated by the French. Now, the next agreement, number 4, is priority to French interests and companies in public procurement and public tenders. This means in the awarding of public contracts, French companies have priority over tenders, even if African countries get better value for money elsewhere. As a result, in most of the former French colonies, all the economic levers of the countries are in the hands of the French expatriate. So when there is a contract, probably you want to build a road in your country. Sometimes when you follow the procurement process, they open and people will come in. Of course, the public will then, of course, bring in their of course, proposal, or they will tender in. Now, we are saying that when such thing is to happen in the colony, priority is given to French companies. So if you want to build a road and you need companies that will build that road for you, or hospital or stadium or anything, and you are in a French colony, and a French company also tenders in, brings in his proposal, you are entitled by this agreement to give that work or infrastructure, whatever, to that French company to come and develop it for you, even when the amount of money that the French company is charging is quite huge. Maybe company A in France is charging you $200 million. You've gotten another company from another country, say company B is charging you $100 million. Per this agreement, you don't have to go in for the company A, but then B, which is in another country, but you have to go in for the company A, which is in France. Serious, right? Yeah. That's the argument 4. Let's take a look at the argument 5. Argument 5 says exclusive right to provide military equipment and train military officers of the colonies. So, following a sophisticated system of scholarship grants and the defense agreements attached to the Colonial Pact, Africans must send their senior officers for training in France and are obliged to provide themselves with military equipment for France. So what this agreement also means is that all your soldiers must be trained in France, nowhere else. Again, when you want to purchase any military equipment, these equipments must be purchased from the French. So in terms of you don't have the right to purchase any other military equipment anywhere. Everything must come from the French. That's also crazy, So all the military troops, especially the officials, the ones in the higher position, they're all trained by France. Now let's move on to the 6th one. Agreement number 6. The right for France to deploy troops and intervene militarily in the country to defend its interests. This means under the so-called defense agreements attached to the Colonial Pact, France has the right to intervene militarily in these African countries and also to permanently station troops in military bases and installations entirely managed by the French. So like what is happening in Niger right now, French interest is at stake because that's where they get their uranium from. So per this agreement, the French has the right to deploy military to come and intervene. And it's not surprised that they are backing ECOWAS and to go and do that, because times have changed, and now if France is to open war on Niger, it's going to receive a lot of condemnation and all of that. So they will back somebody else to do the work. So that is also the 6th agreement. Now, the 7th one is the obligation to make French the official language of the country and the language for education. So officially, the French language should be made the official language, in that colony. And that explains the reason why Burkina Faso, after the coup, quite recently, did away with the French language. They have cancelled this agreement, and they are making their own indigenous languages as the official language. So if you follow the developments happening in Burkina Faso, you can see that the people are trying to just do away with this whole pact, this whole pact. Let's move on to the next one. Next one is the 8th agreement. Also has to do with the use of the CFA franc currency, franc of the French colonies in Africa. So all the Francophone countries have to use the same currency, because that's the CFA. All right, yes, but they themselves, the French, they don't use the CFA. And these are obligations you must do. The ninth agreement is the obligation to also send to France an annual balance sheet and a report on the state of reserves. No report, no money. So you are required as an independent, so-called independent of your country, to submit your financial report, what you used all your money for within the year, what you used your money for. You must submit it to the French. If you don't submit it, they will not give you any money. You must explain whatever you did with that money. 2. Also renounce any military alliance with other countries unless authorized by France. Yes, so like what Mali, I think Burkina Faso is doing, having a military alliance with Russia. Like I said, Burkina Faso is on the way, is on the path of truly independence. They want to do away with all of this. You see, you cannot enter into any military alliance with any country except when the French authorize it. And Burkina Faso is just, kicking out this whole. But apart from Burkina Faso, all the others, they are obeying this. Now, agreement number 11, the obligation to ally with France in the event of war or a global, crisis. So, if there is any global war involving France, you must align with, France. So, in the course of the Second World War, more Africans, fought on the side of French. So, as a country, you must choose the path of France to help them if there is any war, in the affairs. Let's move on to I think there are only 11 of them. So what do you make of this pact? What do you make of this pact? And it looks as if that this pact is more or less is making, of course, France is posing, of course, herself as a father figure, that paternalistic, figure, like, having oversight of these countries, monitoring them, and that has occasioned a number of the coups, because that is happening in most of these francophone countries, and it's quite sad. Now, the question is that what if an independent country decides not to agree with this, or a colony decides not to agree? Guinea Conakry decided not to agree to this pact. Guinea and Mali, Guinea and Sékou Touré decided not to agree to this pact. They did not take part in the pact. And what happened was that the French then decided to destroy all their infrastructure. All their colonial infrastructure in Guinea. And Guinea came down to her knees because everything was destroyed for them. Nothing was left for the people. The health system, collapsed. Transportation collapsed. Power, energy sector collapsed. All the sectors, they all collapsed because they destroyed everything. And that is when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah came in, of Ghana, came in to support Guinea with that 10 million euros or so that a lot of people, spoke against. So they would destroy you. And Mali and Guinea stood and decided not to, agree to this pact. So Guinea has been, Mali, for instance, has been a rebellion for a very long time. They have rebelled, of course, France for a very long time. And then they came to stand with Ghana in the African Union, where Guinea, Ghana, and Mali. And that even explains why these 4 countries are the first to unite. So share your view in the comment section on this pact, and what you think about it. Do you think should we blame the leaders for signing the pact, our leaders for signing this pact, or we should blame the French for giving us these options. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel.